All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another market breakdown. It is Sunday, December 14th. So we have 2 weeks left in the year, and we got the holidays coming up. Super, super exciting. So I hope everyone's doing well. And let's go. Let's begin by going over the trades from last week, which was USD CHF. USD CHF on a weekly time frame was bullish. We had a nice weekly rejection candle last week or the week before. And then we were basically trying to catch a continuation off of the 4-hour EMA, which we were able to do for a short time. Price basically pushed up, retested the area of interest, retested the EMA, and had a push to the upside. And then price completely turned around and took us out of the trade. Now, at the current moment, price is bearish on the daily time frame. It is bearish on the 4-hour time frame, but it is still bullish on the weekly time frame. Overall, I'm thinking that if we manage to get a nice retest of the previous structure here, we should be able to catch a continuation to the downside. We're kind of in an area of consolidation due to the fact that we're above some EMAs while we're underneath others. And we have a strong level of support on a weekly time frame, which we haven't been able to break underneath in quite a while. So this is kind of where we're at the moment. And daily time frame overall has been bearish. We had a very, very strong buy, and we kind of created this double top pattern above the EMA. So now what we could expect to see is a pullback into the EMA, into that double top neckline for a potential sell at the very minimum into this area of interest right here, which we just marked up. And at the most, we could even continue to break through and just continue to sell on a weekly time frame, because that's kind of what we're doing. On the highest time frame, which is the monthly time frame, we have a nice doji rejection candle. And from here, we could expect the weekly or the monthly time frame to have a bearish engulfing candle, which would engulf all of these candles right here. So that's kind of where we're looking at on USD CHF. But yeah, we took a loss last week trying to trade with the weekly and the daily and the 4-hour time frame. So we had no, it was the weekly and the 4-hour. The daily was currently bearish. Next is NZD CAD. I think NZD CAD was the first trade we took in the week. No, it was the second trade. So the first trade we took was USD CHF. NZD CAD was the next one. And the way that it looked was we had a weekly lower low, and then we had a weekly pullback and a weekly rejection candle, right? At the weekly area of interest. Now, the rejection candle made us believe that we were going to get a continuation, which I think we still are. Daily time frame shifted bearish, had a daily rejection candle, after which I decided to sell. Basically, the lower time frames had pushed off of the EMAs and created lower lows. We were basically at a 1-to-1. Then price turned around, took us out by, not a lot. Realistically, we kind of got wicked out of the trade. And then continued in our direction, after which I decided to re-enter. Now we're still inside of this area of interest, daily area of interest, weekly area of interest. We're still inside of it, but all the confluences look really good. 4-hour time frame is bearish, so we have a bearish 4-hour time frame. Daily time frame is bearish, and the weekly time frame is also bearish. We have around psychological level, kind of have around psychological level at 0.80. We have an area of interest. On the weekly time frame, we're bearish. We don't really have much of a pattern, but we are retesting previous structure, not really retesting the EMA, but we do have candlestick rejections from our area of interest and previous structure. On the daily time frame, we had a shift of structure to the downside, retest of previous structure. We have somewhat of a double top, maybe even a head and shoulders, if that's what you would consider this being. But we do have pattern. We are retesting previous structure, retesting the EMA. We have candlestick rejections. 4-hour time frame is currently bearish. So we have a lower low, big pullback into previous structure. And then we have the internal shift of structure right here, pullback, lower low. So right now, all we're looking for, so we have the pattern formation right here, kind of a triple top, head and shoulders, retest of the neckline. So we're retesting previous structure, retesting the EMA, and we have a candlestick rejection as well. So everything that we like to see in this trade underneath the 4-hour EMA, underneath the 30-minute EMA, internal shift the structure on the 15-minute, let's see, lower low, lower low, higher high. So there's no shift to structure, but there was an engulfing candlestick when I entered. I believe it was on the 15-minute time frame. So overall, this trade is 120%, tons of confluences on the daily and the 4-hour time frames, which is really, really nice overall. I think we had entered a little prematurely, even though price was going in our direction, since there was so much empty space for price to fill in between the higher or the lower high and the lower low. So this is all of the space that we had to fill in. We entered on the first rejection right here of the EMA. We needed to wait for a little bit more confirmation of that move to happen. So yeah, we've made this mistake before. There are ways to avoid it, I would say. In my I guess experience, the best way to avoid it is by looking for additional confirmation. So here we basically entered off of well, we were looking at the lower time frame, so we knew we were underneath the 30-minute EMA, which is why we got such a nice entry with zero drawdown, right? Zero drawdown, price pushed all the way down to a 1-to-1 and then turned around. Now, what we should have been looking for is a lower time frame, not a lower time frame, but a time frame that isn't the 4-hour time frame. So for my example, it was the 2-hour time frame, looking for a shift of structure on the 2-hour time frame. So here we have a higher high, higher low, higher high. So shift the structure, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, shift the structure. So now we're bullish, higher high. Now we shift bearish. Okay, so this would have been a good place to take the trade, except you don't know if this is a false breakout right here. So if we had waited for the pullback and then the confirmation for sells, right? So it would have created a head and shoulders pattern. We could have avoided this trade completely because we didn't have proper rejection after the retest of the structure. So here on this entry, what did we have? Well, we had the lower low, shift the structure, higher high, false breakout back into bullish market structure, higher high, higher high, shift the structure, pull back, rejection in this area, and then the lower low. So now we finally confirmed, I think on the 2-hour time frame, that price will continue in our direction. Now, I think we've been in this position before where we hold trades over the weekend and price wicks us out somehow and then continues in our direction. Hopefully that doesn't happen to us this time. Especially considering the fact that we're starting to see our continuation to the downside happening on the daily time frame. So we'll keep an eye on this one. Market opens up. I think market did just open up a minute ago. So we'll have to wait and see how price jumps. Because right before market closed, we did see quite a bit of consolidation and even a little bit of bullish price action. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Anyways, let's go ahead and begin our breakdown for this week, starting with Bitcoin. Bitcoin overall is bearish on the daily time frame. On the weekly time frame, it's bearish, and on the 4-hour time frame, it has created somewhat of a head and shoulders pattern, right? In fact, what we can do is we can ask our So I haven't even done this before. Let's see. AI chart assistant. What is this? What is this chart doing? And see what, what it tells us. So on Bitcoin, in my opinion, I would say we're bearish. This chart shows Bitcoin on a 4-hour time frame with an EMA. Here's the breakdown trend. Prices below the EMA indicating a bearish trend. Support zone, there's a shaded area acting as a support zone. The price is currently testing the support, which is correct. Price action. Price is moving lower, suggesting potential further downside. If the support doesn't hold, the EMA is sloping downward, reinforcing bearish sentiment. If you're considering a trade, watch for a break below the support for a potential short-term opportunity. If this holds, there might be a bounce, but be cautious of the overall trend. So overall trend, it obviously can't see, but the overall trend is also bearish. So it's pretty spot on. If I do say so myself, that would have been my exact breakdown. So now let's keep that in mind. On the weekly time frame, we are bearish underneath the EMA. Daily time frame is also bearish underneath the EMA. Internally, once again, we have this pullback and then this somewhat of a lower low 4-hour time frame. Under the EMA, under the head and shoulders pattern, I would basically look for a bounce off of this support zone to retest the head and shoulders, retest the 4-hour EMA, and then sell. For even better confirmation, I would look for the break and retest underneath this support zone, this area of interest. And then that would be the best option for the short-term sells. Now they're only short-term because, I mean, where would we even target Bitcoin's price action? I guess for the previous support zone, which would have been at around $70,000, between 70 and 74K, I would say, would be a good target for price to reach on a weekly time frame, that is. So there's quite a bit of selling to be done. Moving on, SPX. SPX on a weekly time frame is bullish. We have a bearish rejection candle and a bearish engulfing candle. Daily time frame has shifted bearish, so we have a lower low, basically looking for the lower high to create the next lower low. 4-hour time frame above the EMA, so we're probably going to have a reaction off of the EMA. However, you have to consider the fact that, or not however, but also we can consider the fact that price has shifted bearish on the 4-hour time frame. Therefore, the best option for us to take sells would be underneath this 4-hour EMA here. 4-hour time frame is already bearish, so we have bearish 4-hour time frame, bearish daily time frame, and on the weekly time frame we have bearish engulfing candles. However, the weekly time frame is currently still bullish. If I'm not mistaken, then NASDAQ and US 30 will look somewhat similar. NASDAQ for sure has the doji candle and the bearish engulfing. Daily time frame, huge bearish engulfing here. Somewhat similar to the way we analyzed it previously last week, where we're very, very slowly but surely moving to the upside, right? So we're moving up, we're moving up, we're moving up. Next thing you know, we have a very, very aggressive sell into the EMA. From here, price does recover most of the time. Price does recover most of the time. SPX, I mean, SPX could be doing the same thing, If we don't break underneath the 4-hour EMA, like I said, we were going to have a bounce off of the 4-hour EMA, and this bounce could lead price to just recover completely, go bullish on the 4-hour time frame, go bullish on the daily time frame, so on and so forth. So we'll keep an eye on that. But overall, I would say since we're very, very definitely above the 4-hour EMA, I would look for short-term buying opportunities, keeping in mind that once price reaches a certain level, this is the daily. Okay, so this is the daily EMA. Sorry, not the 4-hour. Once price reaches a certain level, such as this level right here, we might see a rejection to the downside once more. So keep that in mind, trade carefully. But this is a good level for price to buy back from, at the very minimum, back into these wicks and back into the EMA. So I would say short-term buys on NASDAQ, short-term buys on SPX, and then eventually, with proper confirmation, we could see longer-term sells on NASDAQ and SPX as well. US 30 hasn't really given us too much to work with here, except for we do have a new higher high on the daily time frame. Weekly time frame has a higher high. Daily 4-hour time frame has a new higher high. We're currently having a 4-hour pullback on US 30. So yeah, the most different, I guess the pair that's most different from the others is US 30. So I would trade that one a little bit more cautiously. Moving on is gold. So gold has finally created a weekly higher high. So that means we have a new higher low right here. It was previously created, it had previously created the higher low and the higher high in August. So it's been a few months since then. Daily time frame has a new higher high as well. So here we go, daily higher high. We did close with somewhat of a doji candle here on gold, but we are trading pretty consistently to the upside, I will say. Nothing super out of the ordinary. You know, gold trades pretty nicely when it gets back into its groove. So 4-hour time frame is above the EMA. We're currently having a pullback on the 4-hour time frame. It is still bullish from this elbow right here up. There's a chance that we might actually go bearish short term. I really would like to see gold retest these structures right here. However, we have seen this wick right here retest this wick and this structure point. So if we were to draw a level of support resistance, it does overlap. I guess a line doesn't do it justice. We would have to use, there we go. So if we take this wick to this body, we have 3 touches overall. 4-hour, 2-hour, 1-hour, 30-minute, each one is above the EMA. If price manages to break underneath the EMA, say on the 30-minute time frame, so if we were to create a bearish move, a pullback underneath the 30-minute EMA, we could see price potentially selling further down into the 2-hour, 4-hour EMA, retest these previous structures down here, as I was talking about earlier. But as of right now, I think gold is just going to continue pressing higher with some short-term sells in between. I think that it's overall, I mean, we did reach the overall target right here. Did we? No, we're very close. So we're very close to the daily higher high, I guess, would be the, well, no, the daily higher high is right here. We're very close to breaking the daily structure body. It's the body that we're looking at right now. So if we were to be taking buys, this would be our final take profit for buys. It would be this right here. So yeah, short-term sells potentially to take longer-term buys. I know some of us, not some of us, I know James was saying he wants to see gold hit $5,000 before the end of the year. Highly doubt it. I mean, that would be an insane amount of movement in just the next 2 weeks. All right, next is the US dollar index. Weekly time frame is bearish. We had a rejection off of the weekly EMA. Daily time frame did exactly what we had marked up, where we broke underneath the EMA, underneath the previous structure, double top neckline, retested previous structure, and then sold. At the current moment, we are at a level of support resistance, and we could see price slowing down, which I think it might be doing, slowing down right here, and retesting the EMA and the previous structure right there in order to sell. That would be nice to see. However, price would need to go bullish on the 4-hour time frame in order for this to happen. So if we would break above this structure right here, then we would go bullish, and it would just be a little bit less confluence for us to take the trade. Anyways, structure is very clean. I would like to see the pullback. We do have a daily doji candle, which we closed with on Friday. That could be the first indication of a pullback starting to happen. And then once we do get the pullback to happen, then we'd want to see another rejection candle, maybe the 4-hour time frame, to create somewhat of a double top, or head and shoulders, whatever that looks like, before then selling down further. All right. Moving on is USD CHF. We already talked about this one. We have two daily dojis, right? At an area of major support resistance. Like we've seen this before, right here, two daily dojis. Not really any others, I don't think, but two daily dojis started this pullback into the EMA, and then price sold. Obviously, then it turned around, but I think that the confluences were a little bit less obvious back then. Weekly time frame is currently bullish. Daily time frame is currently bearish. Double top, retest the neckline in order to sell back into the area of interest, or further lower if price decides to do that. So next is going to be, okay, so the candle did just open. Yeah, so we do have the open of this new weekly candle. Very nice open for us on NZD CAD. Hopefully we can maintain that price action, but we'll see about that. But yeah, overall, just going to be a pullback to sell on the daily time frame or the 4-hour time frame. So this note right here will actually remain valid. All right, so moving on. This could be a trade that I'd be interested in taking. So I'm going to throw this right here and change that to sells. NZD CAD, weekly time frame. So what I think happened last week on NZD CAD is we have our rejection candle, right? So I talked about this before in the past, where sometimes price has a reaction and then has a pullback immediately after that reaction. So it's more like you can see it more often on the daily time frame or the 4-hour time frame. This pair doesn't really show it or give it justice. But for an example, if we can find one, let's say right here. So here we have a very, very strong rejection candle, right? What follows the rejection candle is a pullback candle, and then we have the continuation of the move. So for example, here, rejection candle, pullback candle, continuation of the move. Rejection candle, pullback candle, continuation of the move. So just a pattern that price replays over and over again. Here's the rejection candle. This is our pullback candle. And then we have the continuation of the move that follows that. Okay. So all we look for, or all we will look for here on the daily time frame, is basically a new lower low, which will then give us an opportunity to create the lower high, next lower low, so on and so forth on that daily time frame. I think the biggest thing to watch right now will be some of the lower time frames, such as the 30-minute EMA. If price manages, so the way that I see it happening right now, since price just opened and dumped, is we might see a pullback, like say a 2-hour or 4-hour pullback into previous structure, since we do have, if we do call this an internal lower low, right? So we have, if this was a lower low, shift the structure, higher high, whatever. Right here, we have the shift the structure bearish, pull back, lower low. So anywhere between right here and right here is valid for a pullback. So we could see price pull back all the way into this level here. We have support resistance. We have a nice area of interest, and then we could see the continuation because we have no weekly wick right now. So we don't have a 4-hour wick. We don't have a daily wick. We don't have a weekly wick. And that's something that we do need in order to see proper price action. We could scroll through so many candles and you'll rarely find one that doesn't have both the top and the bottom wick. Here's an example of where we don't have one, right? But what did price do the following week? Came back, created that wick, and then sold. Another example I think I saw was, you see, even this candle here has a tiny little wick. Pretty average wick, actually. Anyways, let us continue. So on this time frame, or on this pair, sorry, I would just look for a lower high to create the next lower low. And overall, we have a very, very clean area of interest right here, which provides support, or provides rather resistance for our trade. Just another confluence that would help us in the long run. So NZD CAD, I am interested in. Will I re-enter this trade for, to have two positions in it? Probably not. But this is one that I will keep an eye on regardless. USD JPY weekly time frame. Weekly time frame is very bullish. So weekly time frame is bullish. We have a weekly push, weekly pullback, weekly rejection candle. Daily time frame is currently also bullish. We have the higher high, higher low, and then we have this push to the upside, which had a very, very aggressive pullback. But we closed Friday with a relatively nice rejection candle here. And on the 4-hour time frame, you can see how we were above the EMA, then we broke below, retested, sold. Now we just broke above, retested, and the retest on both of these looks very, very similar. If you notice, when we were selling very aggressively, right, we sold, single candlestick aggressive pullback, doji rejection, continuation. What happened on the buys? Buy above the EMA, very aggressive rejection candle to the downside into the EMA, doji rejection candle in order to take buys. This is a trade that I would be interested in personally. Higher high, higher low, area of interest. If you want a little bit more confirmation, you could probably look for some on the lower time frames. I mean, even the 30-minute time frame here looks really nice. You have a higher high, pull back into the EMA rejection, pull back into the EMA rejection. What I would probably look for is a push above the area of interest, retest of the EMA one more time, and then take the buys. So it would be a lower time frame break and retest above area of interest. So that's what I would look for on USD JPY. All right, moving on. USD or Euro USD. Euro USD is one that we missed out on. We missed out on this pullback and the continuation. I was looking for a 4-hour break and retest, which we missed out on. What I said last week was we're looking for something like this. Pull back into the EMA, very aggressive buy or sell. Here we have the buys, pull back into the EMA, very aggressive continuation to the upside. Now, on this one here, you'll notice we had a very clean pullback, And then we had this double top break underneath the EMA. So we had the shift the structure, pull back, continuation to the downside. Now here, there was no shift the structure on the 4-hour time frame. We just were bullish. We shifted bearish, 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 bearish. And next thing you know, we just had this huge explosion to the upside. So we kind of missed out on that because we were waiting for the extra confirmation. If we were looking at the 2-hour time frame instead, we could have gotten similar results, I think, because here you have the higher high. This was your elbow on the 2-hour time frame. This was your shift of structure to the downside. Well, you had your higher low, higher high, pull back, next higher high. So your higher high shifted a little bit higher, higher high, shift the structure to the downside. The only issue is if you're playing the lower time frame game, you have this lower low, but then this is your lower high, right? So your lower low, you shifted bullish on the you shifted bullish on the 2-hour time frame, but then you shifted bearish very aggressively, and then you could have re-entered right here. So on the 2-hour time frame, there was, I think, 2 different ways you could have entered that trade. Here, same thing, kind of not as clean. Obviously, here you have your pullback, 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 pullback. And then you have this like lower low right here, which I wouldn't even count. I wouldn't even count that as an elbow, I don't think. Yeah, that's not really much of an elbow. But it does kind of look like a double bottom. Um, does look like a double bottom. Push up, retest the double bottom, and then continuation to the upside. Euro USD, not really interested at the current moment. Looking for a daily pullback. So this does kind of remind me of how prices moved in the past. So all we're looking for is a daily pullback into previous structure or into the EMA. Here, price doesn't really respect previous structure as much. Like there's no clear, oh, this is my lower low, so price can only pull up to my lower to my lower low and then has to sell. No, it can actually pull up even further and still be a valid continuation to the downside. So here, price can pull back all the way up to here and still have a valid trade to the upside. That's what I would look for. We already have a daily doji, which would signify the potential beginning of the pullback on the daily time frame. So weekly time frame, clearly bullish. So weekly time frame, clearly bullish. Daily time frame, clearly bullish. And 4-hour time frame is also currently bullish. Higher high, so on and so forth. So that's what I would look for on Euro USD is a daily pull back into the EMA to buy. All right. Euro CAD. Euro CAD on the weekly time frame has finally pulled back into previous structure on the daily time frame. So weekly time frame, we're bearish. Daily time frame, we have the push to the downside. We have the pullback into the EMA, into the previous structure. Looks fantastic. I can't lie. This looks phenomenal. Area of interest, clearest area of interest I've ever seen, right? You have every structure point. You can even make it tighter if you want. Make it like this. You have 1, 2, 3 structure points right there. Bunch of wicks in between. Retest of the area of interest. A retest of the previous structures. Daily rejection candle. Okay, so that's very important. 4-hour time frame doesn't really have a shift of structure. So we do have this lower low, higher high. So we're currently bullish on the 4-hour time frame. This is our higher low, higher high, and we don't have any lower lows. On the 2-hour time frame, same thing, kind of. This is our higher low. This is our higher high. No, this is our higher low. This is our higher high, shift the structure bearish, then we shifted bullish again. So realistically, I would basically just look for price to shift back underneath this EMA, maybe retest the EMA to sell. So I would look for a a break and retest of the lower time frame EMAs, similar to the way we've seen it happen before. Let's see if we can find a good example. Where we are above, we shift below, then we shift above, then we shift below. I mean, below, above, below, retest, sell. I guess that's the best visual you're going to get is the sell, the retest, and then the sell. So that's all we're looking for. Break, retest, sell underneath the lower time frames of lower time frame, EMA to sell. Now, this one is going to be very similar to the trade we are currently in, NZD CAD, in terms of they're both CAD pairs. Okay, they're both CAD pairs. Not going to be identical, but will be more or less similar. One thing to note about EuroCAD, and I guess it's also noteworthy on NZD CAD, there's still quite a bit of empty space, right? So there's a bit of empty space here that could still get filled in. I don't think it's going to at this point. I think that it's more, at this point, I think that we're more so targeting this empty space down here. So you have all of this versus the little bit of that. There's a lot of inefficiency in this area. So that's probably where we're headed next. Euro USD, we already talked about. Euro CAD, we're talking about right now. But yeah, there is a bit of inefficiency that's happening right inside of this area. If price doesn't manage to give us a proper break and retest, then I would expect price to break back above the EMA. So if we just sell, right, we sell, two things can happen. Okay. Option number one, we sell and then we just continue to sell. We miss the trade. Boo-hoo. It's not the end of the world. Or option number two, we sell and on our buyback, we continue. We just continue buying. We just continue buying. And then eventually, once we break above this double top, we might have a head and shoulders here and then we'll sell. So a few options. Either way, we want to be as patient as possible and try to catch obviously the best trade as possible. Now, one thing that is unmistakable is the fact that we are bearish on the daily time frame, and we do have this very, very strong area of interest, right? So that's you can't really go wrong with that. All that you could go wrong with is your entry. So I believe price should continue pressing downwards. The only question is it going to happen today, tomorrow, or the day after? And if you make the mistake of being too impatient, you'll get stuck in the same position as me with the last entry on NZD CAD. So, all right, I'm interested in both of these. I do like EuroCAD. I will probably look to take a trade on it today, tomorrow, the day after, not sure. But we'll keep an eye on that one. AUD NZD weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is bullish, and 4-hour time frame is bearish. Now, I do like this for sells. We have two bullish time frames, but we have a daily double top, right? So we have a daily double top, and then price sold, retested the neckline and the previous structure on the daily time frame and shifted underneath the EMA. So we've actually broken underneath, retested. This is something I drew up from last week. We have a double top on the 4-hour time frame, double top on the daily time frame, retested the neckline in order to sell. I would be more comfortable with this trade and that's probably why I'm not going to pick it for my watch list. I'd be more comfortable if this was if it had two time frames in sync to sell. Until it does, which won't be for a while, I'm just going to stay away from it until we have the retest, or until we have, I guess, a proper head and shoulders. Like we might do this, retest, sell, retest, sell. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But we're above the daily EMA, we're above the weekly EMA, and we're bullish on the daily and weekly time frame. So yeah, moving on to Euro AUD. Euro AUD on the weekly time frame is currently bullish. So we have a huge push to the upside. Last week, we retested the EMA and we had a very, very aggressive buyback, bullish candle. Now, this is a euro pair. The area of interest reminds me of the area of interest given to us by EuroCAD, right? This is a similar market structure, lots of touches on the top side. We broke below. Now we're retesting from the bottom side. We are above. We broke below, retested from the bottom side. We do have a daily rejection candle here as a doji, and we opened directly upwards. We're above the 4-hour EMA. And what I would look for personally is I would look for price to shift back below the 4-hour EMA and go bearish on the 4-hour time frame. So that would basically look like a break below, retest to sell. And then once again, if you're too worried about taking a trade above this area of interest, a good place to sell would be underneath this area of interest down here. So you have two options in order to sell, and neither of them are ready just yet. So we'll come back to that one later in the week. GBP AUD going to be similar to Euro AUD in terms of the direction that we're trading. Weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is bearish. So we have this lower low on the daily time frame, and we're pulling back to create the lower high. We also have the rejection candle here on the daily time frame, the 4-hour time frame. It has a rejection candle. We're retesting the head and shoulders on the 4-hour time frame. Lower time frames are currently above the EMAs. So in order to take sells, I would be more interested if price was underneath the 1-hour EMA, underneath the 2-hour EMA, underneath the 4-hour EMA properly. We don't want it to be, no questions asked. We don't want to be thinking or guessing. We just want to know. So we want to know that price is done heading to the upside and is ready to head to the downside. So here we're just going to be looking for a proper break and retest under lower time frame EMAs. Okay, so bullish on the weekly, bearish on the daily, and bullish on the 4-hour. So we have a higher high, pullback, inverted head and shoulders. So that's one thing to consider, is the inverted head and shoulders on GBP AUD on the 4-hour time frame. GBP NZD, weekly time frame, kind of in the same position as GBP AUD. They don't look identical. They don't look identical at all. Wait a minute. One's moving up, the other one's moving down. All right, doesn't matter. They trade similarly. Not identically, but similarly. Let's see. Down, down, up, up, down, down. So when they're selling, they're both selling. And then when they're both buying, but one of them buys a lot faster and the other one sells a lot faster. So kind of depends on which currency it is. Anyways, we already talked about GBP AUD. Let's talk about GBP NZD. Daily time frame is currently bearish. The 4-hour time frame is currently bearish. Lower low, lower high. So this is our lower high, and that is our lower low. So here the 4-hour time frame is currently bearish, and the daily time frame is also currently bearish, but the weekly time frame is currently bullish. Okay, so we have a higher high. Last week we closed with like a daily or a weekly doji. To be honest, I think we should continue to sell. I just don't love how much consolidation we have in this area. Now, this is pretty normal. Like we have a bunch of consolidation here, a lot of it here, here, here. But in order to avoid as much confusion as possible, I would wait for a proper break and retest underneath this area in order for price to continue to sell. So if you're interested in this, be my guest. I'm personally going to stay away. USD CAD. USD CAD weekly time frame is currently bearish underneath the weekly EMA. We've seen this before. I feel like we've seen this right here before. It almost looks the same, where we're under the EMA, then we buy back, we buy back, we buy back, we buy back, then we sell underneath. And like, in my opinion, let's see, we're still above the monthly EMA, right? We're still above the monthly EMA. Weekly time frame. We're below, then we buy back, then we buy back, and then whatever. Anyways, that doesn't matter. We're just going to go with what the markets are telling us, and the markets are telling us that the weekly time frame is bearish. The daily time frame is currently bearish, so we have a lower low. This could be maybe considered a lower high. Lower high, and then the next lower low. I personally wouldn't recommend this being the lower high. Let's see. Actually, you know what we're going to do? If we don't know, we're just going to ask. Where is the previous lower high and lower low? So we're going to see what it tells us in terms of what's going on. In this chart, the previous lower high is around the end of November, where price peaked reverse to the downside. I don't think it has the definition of lower highs and lower lows that we use. Lower low at the near beginning of December, where price reached a new end before the recent minor retracement. November. I guess that is it. Let's see. Previous around the end of November. Yeah, that's the end of November, all right. Lower high, and this is the new lower low. So I guess that is it. This wouldn't count as the elbow at all. Explain to it what it is. I think it actually knows what it is. I think when it comes to, you can train it. I mean, it learns. It's an adaptive AI model that you can train by yourself. But like, if, for example, I want to use single candlestick pullbacks as my elbows, then you would have, I don't want it to learn that from me, but you can tell it like this counts as an elbow, and then the next one is the lower low. So I think you got it spot on. The end of November is the lower high. That is right here, the end of November. And then it said the beginning of January or December. So for the minor adjustment. Anyways, the beginning of January would be here though. So lower high, lower low. I guess this is the minor retracement, and then the new lower low. Anyways. All right. So in my opinion, I would count this as the lower low, lower high, lower low. We're still looking for a daily pullback. We're still looking for a weekly pullback into the EMA. In my opinion, that would only make sense. We just recently broke underneath the weekly EMA, and we need to see price retest the weekly EMA in order to continue to sell, right? So for example, here we broke below, we retested, we sold, creating a new lower low. That's going to be what I'm looking for in general, is going to be that pullback on daily break and retest. So that was way before. We wanted to see the break and retest of this. And we did get that. We actually did get that pullback, and then a very, very aggressive sell there. Broke, retested the neckline, broke, retested the area of interest, the EMA, and then sold. So at the current moment, we're just waiting for pullback into the daily and weekly EMA to sell. So USD CAD, I don't think we're going to see anything tradable anytime in the next week, but we'll see what happens. Euro NZD. Euro NZD is bullish. We have this bullish engulfing weekly candle. Daily time frame had this bullish engulfing candle, and then we have this questionable doji candle. Now this doji candle, okay, so yeah, it's price slowed down. Almost looks the same as over here. Underneath the EMA, very, very choppy. We broke above, we corrected, and then we broke above and continued pressing higher. 4-hour time frame looks very, very nice on this one. Daily time frame, a little bit less so, simply because of this rejection candle here. But price does do that quite often on Euro NZD. You'll notice even here, a couple times, here and here and here, we have these doji rejection candles, only to have a continuation after that. So Euro NZD, I do think that I will take buys on, or look to take buys on. Weekly time frame is bullish. Daily time frame is bearish. But the 4-hour time frame is currently bullish as well. So we have this inverted head and shoulders, break, retest above the EMA now. So honestly, just looking for a retest of previous structure, maybe a retest of the inverted head and shoulders in order to take buys. So it would basically just be, so 4-hour break and retest above the EMA to buy, or 4-hour pullback to buy. And that's simply all it's going to be. A 4-hour pullback to buy. And this 4-hour pullback will just be the weekly wick being created, the daily wick being created, and a 4-hour pullback being created at the same time. Now, another thing to consider is, what are the lower time frames doing? Very, very clean price action for the most part on the lower time frames, the 1-hour time frame especially. Underneath the EMA, shift above, break, retest. Now we're above, we're at the higher high, pulling back into previous structure on the 1-hour time frame and having a reaction off of the area of interest as well. So overall, pretty solid, pretty clean, pretty nice. I mean, all I would look for is, if I was going to take the trade now, it would be pretty aggressive. Stop loss still seems to be 73 points, which is ridiculous. But catching a proper, like a really, really tight stop loss would be insane. You could realistically, if you're targeting weekly structure with a tight stop loss, get over a 1 to 10 on this trade. But the stop loss is the most important part of the trade. So if you want to be safe, then you probably want to place your stop loss underneath the previous area of support resistance, which is underneath this wick right here. So we'll see what happens with this one. Am I going to trade it? I'll consider it. But I probably won't trade it myself. So we'll see. For now, we'll put it on, and then later on we'll talk about it more. So here, break and retest, GBP NZD, USD CAD, AUD NZD. So AUD NZD still waiting on the pullback into previous structure on the daily time frame. So we have a daily area of interest here and a daily area of interest here. At the current moment, I think area of interest number one is going to be what stops price from going further down. I think that that area of interest number one is where price is targeting mainly, because if we reach area of interest two, we will be underneath the daily EMA. Now, this has happened before where we were looking for sells, right? We had the lower low. We had a very aggressive pullback, so aggressive that we broke past the previous structure. We broke past the EMA and we then continued to sell, right? So if that happens, we might sell down to here, buy back, and then retest this area here, and then continue to buy back the same way we did here. We bought aggressively, sold, retested the actual area of interest. We wanted to sell from here and then had the continuation to the downside. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep both of these areas of interest on my chart for now. AUD NZD, I do like quite a lot. And I think that we might be able to trade it this week. Well, actually, let's think about this. We have a weekly rejection candle. And if we're expecting sells, then we probably won't get the pullback and the continuation in the same week, because a pullback plus a continuation would basically look like a really, really aggressive, it would look like a candle that has no top wick for the most part and just a huge wick to the downside. And then if it closes bullish, then it would just be like a huge, huge wick to the downside with no lower body. Kind of like this, except for this one, even this one closed bearish. So I guess that could happen if we have a huge push to the downside and then we just close somewhere within this area of interest here. That could be a pretty acceptable looking candle on the weekly time frame. So yeah, we'll keep it on our watch list for now, and then we'll come back to it throughout the week and see what happens. AUD CAD on the weekly time frame is currently bullish, still within this trend line or this channel. Weekly time frame had a rejection candle, and then the daily time frame has created the double top, and we have a neckline right here. Retested the neckline to potentially sell. 4-hour time frame would make sense if we retested the 4-hour EMA once again. So the daily time frame is currently bullish. So yeah, I mean, since we're stuck in all of this consolidation, I'm not a huge fan of it, so I'm just going to stay away. If price manages to break and retest above the EMA, then I'd look to take buys. But if not, I'm not too interested in sells either, even though they do look nice on the 4-hour and the daily time frame. It just would be a counter trend trade, which I'm not interested in taking. Next is NZD USD. NZD USD just waiting for the daily pullback to buy. This is one that I would probably be interested in taking, similar to AUD USD. Moving on, GBP USD. Wait. Moving on, Euro GBP. Euro GBP, weekly time frame, bullish, had a bullish engulfing candle last week. Daily time frame is bearish, but we are above the EMA now. And 4-hour time frame is also above the EMA. I would honestly kind of just look for a pullback similar to the way we did here. If you see any similarities, we have a bunch of choppiness. Price finally breaks above the EMA, retest, and then buys, what happened here, choppiness, price breaks above, retest buys, and then we have a pullback and then a continuation. I think that's kind of what we're having here, pullback and then a continuation to the upside would make sense to me on Euro GBP. I didn't mean to rhyme that. But yeah, weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is bearish, but the 4-hour time frame is currently bullish. So we have the higher high, the higher low, and then the next higher high. So 4-hour pullback to buy seems like a good analysis. GBP USD weekly time frame is bullish. We have had the shift of structure. We're above the EMA. Daily time frame is bullish. Had the pullback into the EMA, the engulfing time or the engulfing candle. Currently having a 4-hour pullback. We do have two pretty big rejection candles on the 4-hour time frame, and therefore I would not be surprised if price just continued to buy without having any sort of resistance stopping it from doing so. So very, very clearly, very nice. I mean, honestly, very, very nice market structure on the 4-hour time frame. This is exactly what you want to see when you're trading Forex, just in general. This is exactly what you want to see. Very clean, very nice, pullback into the EMA to buy, or here, pullback into the EMA to sell. Same thing here, pullback, sell, retest, sell. Very, very nice. So let us delete this first of all. Monthly time frame bullish, pullback, rejection candle last week. Yeah, that's pretty solid. Am I interested in this one? Considering the fact that we already have 2, 3, 4 USD pairs on our list, probably not. Pull back to sell, even USD JPY, like realistically USD JPY. The reason we're buying so aggressively on USD JPY isn't because of the USD, it's more so because of the JPY. I think the JPY is very, very bullish at the moment. So this one, out of all the pairs that I have marked up so far, is probably going to be one that wicks us out or takes us out of the trade, takes us out of the trade, because USD wants to sell, just like on USD CHF, we're seeing lots of selling, but JPY wants to buy. So it's going to be like, which one is stronger, the selling or the buying? All right, we went over GBP USD, GBP CAD, just not interested. We've kind of gone over this one for so long since price was all the way up here. And since then, we've gotten nothing but a bunch of choppiness. CHF JPY has a weekly higher high. So we're bullish on the weekly. Daily time frame is bullish as well. So we have a daily higher high, and the 4-hour time frame is also currently bullish. So the 4-hour time frame has a higher high as well. All I can say is it probably would make sense for the 4-hour time frame to have a deeper pullback, maybe into some of these structures right here in order to buy. And that would also look like a daily pullback into previous structures. So if you would count this as a triple bottom, this would be the neckline, pull back into the neckline of the triple bottom in order to continue to buy with the higher time frames. So yeah, just 4-hour pullback to buy. Four-hour pullback to buy. Next is GBP JPY weekly time frame is creating the higher high. Daily time frame, nothing much, kind of having a daily pullback. 4-hour time frame having a 4-hour pullback. We have a daily rejection candle. Honestly, I'm not too interested in trading this simply because we haven't retested previous structure and we don't have an area of interest. This would be the previous structure right here. Yeah, not interested. Here, we're looking for a daily pullback into these structure points here. didn't happen yet. Still waiting. NZD having a daily pullback at the moment into previous structure. Still waiting. Same thing here. We have a bullish engulfing, so chances are we might not even get that pullback. In fact, some of these pairs are due for like a much deeper pullback than just a daily time frame. Some of these need a weekly time frame pullback. For example, GJ, NZD JPY, and CAD JPY could all use a deeper weekly pullback. So for the most part, I'm just going to stay away from these ones, from the JPY pairs. If you guys have any more in-depth questions about certain pairs, I'm more than welcome to answer them for you. But until, as of right now, for my own self, I'm just going to stay away from the JPY pairs. Next is Euro CHF. Euro CHF has had the weekly rejection candle, AUD CHF rejection candles all the way around the board, which kind of explains why USD CHF took us out of the trade last week. We were supposed to see more buys, but instead, I think we reached our limit on the buys, and we might actually be starting to take more sells in the long run. So starting with Euro CHF weekly time frame is currently still bullish, but we've reached the weekly EMA and we've had a rejection. Daily time frame, what's happened? We had a very, very strong daily pullback. Now, daily time frame is still bullish, therefore there's nothing much for us to do. But the 4-hour time frame has shifted bearish, and we've shifted underneath the 4-hour EMA. So you could take some counter trend trades to the downside off of this 4-hour EMA, or you wait for the daily time frame to actually shift bearish, pull back, and then sell, which would be my personal favorite thing to do, because at the current moment, we're kind of in this situation where the daily time frame is bullish. Here it did shift bearish, but as soon as we reach the EMA, we have a rejection, pullback, a rejection, sell, pullback, sell underneath the EMA, and then all is fine and well once we're underneath the EMA. However, until we manage to shift underneath the EMA, we might struggle for a while. So here we're below. Once we're above, we struggle for a couple of days, and then we break back below. So I would wait for that struggle to end and then just hop in on the continuation. It's going to be the same thing all the way around. AUD CHF above an area of interest. Could you take buys? 1000%. You could take buys on any of these pairs. If you have the proper confluences, being the daily time frame is bullish, which it is, and the 4-hour time frame is bullish, which it is not, because the weekly time frame is bearish. You only have one time frame in sync, which is the daily time frame. So here the sells are counter trend trade. Here the buys are counter trend, or let me see. No. Here the buys are counter trend trade, and here the sells are counter trend trade. So you can pick and choose whichever ones you want to see, or whichever ones you want to trade. AUD CHF weekly time frame is bearish, daily time frame is bullish, and the 4-hour time frame is bearish. CAD CHF weekly time frame is bullish. So here we're bullish. Daily time frame also bullish, and then 4-hour time frame is currently bearish. So we have the shift structure, lower low, lower high for potentially the next lower low. Yeah, so for this one, 2 time frames are bullish, 1 time frame is bearish. I think we're going to get a lot of mixed. Yeah, so here weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is bullish, and 4-hour time frame is bearish. I would wait for that confirmation that we're done buying and that the sellers are ready to come back into this market. If not, then you can continue looking for buys. Weekly time frame is bullish, daily time frame is bullish, retesting the EMA, and 4-hour time frame is bearish underneath the 4-hour EMA. If you're going to look for buys once price creates like a double bottom. If you create a double bottom, break above the EMA, retest to buy, 100% off, my hat goes off to you. That's going to be a great trade. However, if you don't wait for that, then you could be in trouble. You could be in trouble because it seems like we've reached an area where price doesn't want to buy anymore. And now we're going to be kind of choppy between the buyers and sellers until price can decide exactly what's going to happen. And the 4-hour EMA is going to be a big determining factor of what ends up happening in general. So for right now, I think I'm going to stay away from the CHF pairs as well. I think sometime maybe tomorrow or midweek, we might be able to get like a better glimpse of what's going to happen. All it would take is the daily time frame to shift bearish and then have a daily pullback and then a confirmation on the lower time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, that would look like a lower low on the 4-hour, right? That means the daily would go bearish, and then a 4-hour pullback, which would be the daily pullback, and then the 4-hour rejection. Now, at some point in this 4-hour pullback, which is the daily pullback, price might actually go back above the EMA, right? So that's when we wait for the confirmation that this pullback right here is over and that we are now actually going to trade back to the downside. And that would confirm that the daily pullback for the daily lower high is over and that the 4-hour time frame is shifting back underneath the 4-hour EMA, and that all the lower time frames are also in order to sell. So there's going to be a lot of waiting that happens, but I promise that the waiting is going to be worth it because once this happens, we're going to be in a very good position to take a long-term sell. I mean, like literally until this lower structure point right here could be, one of your targets, simply because we were patient and we waited for price to finally stop buying and start to sell. However, obviously, we're still above the EMA, and there's a good chance that price could actually not do what we just explained, right? So if the 4-hour time frame breaks back above the EMA and then just continues to buy, it's above, it's above, it's above. Next thing you know, daily time frame has created a new higher high, right? So the daily time frame creates a new higher high. And then, from there on, we're either looking for a pullback to buy or we're looking for maybe another shift to structure to sell. So it really depends on what price ends up doing for us. So we'll come back tomorrow and we will reanalyze the CHF pairs, or we'll reanalyze everything, but especially the CHF pairs to determine what's going to happen. Now, on to the pairs that we have picked for this week. USD CHF is going to be a daily pullback into the previous structure, or technically a 4-hour pullback. So pullback to sell. Here it's going to be, in fact, we've already created the daily, potentially even the weekly wick on this one, depending on how price reacts. So we'll see what happens with this one, but for this one, it would also be a 4-hour pullback. 4-hour pullback to sell. So we basically need the 4-hour lower high to create the next lower low. So 4-hour pullback to sell. So here, pullback to sell, pullback to sell. Here it's going to be a break and retest of the lower time frame EMAs. I would prefer, see, lower time frame. You can't really wait for the 4-hour one bullish, or you can wait for the 4-hour lower low. So it could be a 4-hour break and retest. 4-hour break and retest itself, because, or it would rather be, 4-hour shift the structure to sell. So the 4-hour time frame here has gone bearish. Wait, did it go bearish? Higher high. No, it didn't. I'm stupid. That was the 2-hour time frame. Yeah, so the 2-hour time frame went bearish, not the 4-hour time frame. So 4-hour time frame would have to go. That's why. Okay, so we're not waiting for a 4-hour shift structure. 4-hour time frame is bullish from here up to here. And in order for it to go bearish, it would have to shift below this area and then have a pullback to sell, which could happen, don't get me wrong, but I think the lower time frame break and retest under EMA to sell would be a better option, because It still forces you to be patient, but it doesn't force you to be so patient that the entire move runs away from you. So this would go above these two, USD, JPY. Here we're kind of looking at lower time frame break and retest above the area of interest. Yeah, so it would be like a 30-minute time frame or a 1 hour time frame break and retest above the area of interest to confirm that price is now trading above the EMA in order to buy. So this one is a break and retest. This one is also a break and retest above. On Euro NZD, it was a 4-hour pullback to buy, which looks like this 4-hour pullback is almost over considering how price has now engulfed. So something tells me that we might have missed this move, or this move is currently, it might just run away from us, to be honest, which is fine. 4-hour pullback to buy. AUD USD break and retest. That's not right. Daily pullback. Daily pullback to buy. Here, same thing. Daily pullback to buy. And then Euro GBP will be, I think we were talking about lower time frames. 4-hour pullback to buy. Was that it? 4-hour pullback to buy, which would, I guess that would be it because we have a higher high. Now we need a higher low to buy. Okay, so this one would go with some of these others. Okay, so quick recap of the pairs that I'm interested in for Euro CAD. Lower time frame break and retest underneath the EMA to sell. So something like this, break, retest, sell. Here would be a break and retest above the area of interest to buy on the lower time frames. Here it would be on Euro NZD, it would be a 4-hour pullback to buy. So on the 4-hour time frame, pullback to create the higher low to create the next higher high. This one might have run away from us. Euro GBP, 4-hour pullback to buy. Here it is a 4-hour pullback to sell on NZD CAD. 4-hour or daily pullback to sell. So now it's a daily pullback to sell. And then AUD USD, daily pullback to buy. NZD USD, daily pullback to buy. Or finally, Euro CAD. Wait, no, that's back to the beginning. So those are all of the pairs for this week. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll hope to see you guys in the next call.